أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's start off with some check-in questions. How are you doing? How was your week? And how has your mindset played a role in how your week has been or how you are? How can mindset impact wellness? And what advice would you give others about mindset and its impact on every aspect of our lives? This is similar to the question last time, and it is, how does stress sometimes debilitate us? How can we regain control or prevent ourselves from being overwhelmed or burnt out? How does mindset play a role in how we feel, and how does it impact which aspects of reality we accept and which ones we don't accept? So this is similar to some of the discussions we had in the previous slide when we were asking the questions, the checking questions, and this also connects with the previous experiment, so to speak, that we've done before. In this case, it's specifically adding on the last question, which is about the mindset and how does that impact the way stress affects us or it doesn't affect us or whatever. So this is just something to keep in mind. The mindset is going to be very important in terms of, incremental steps taking for moving forward, and inshallah, eventually we'll get to the strategy for success, the step 4, and we'll go into much more detail, inshallah, about the day-to-day activities that you could do as opposed to like weekly or monthly or whatever checkpoints. And remember, sustainable transformation is the key, but remember that we are talking about growth mindset, and the growth mindset, without it, you're not going to be able to move forward effectively. Remember the 3 aspects of motivation. These are important, especially purpose. Nowadays, it's becoming more common for the younger generation to focus more on purpose-driven stuff as opposed to simply just working like a boss and employee sort of like the relationship. Now they're focusing on what the purpose is of my work and stuff like that. So that's something that's becoming more of a meaningful thing nowadays. And remember, roadblocks, sometimes you might feel some sort of, you might feel fear of like losing or missing out on something, or like for example, you get into a situation where that I might say something and it might impact my relationship with somebody else in a negative way and so on. So that's a fear, and that's what we had already mentioned, that these are common roadblocks, very common, and just keep that in mind over here. Also, you can attach meaning to something, the bigger purpose, the why, right here, purpose, right? And the lack of it can be a roadblock, but having a purpose why you're doing something and having a little bit of practice or training or know-how can help you in terms of like making sure that the interaction that you have is actually more effective and positive. The purpose is going to be very important, because if you have a really like burning purpose, I need to do this because of this and this, then it makes it a lot easier for you to overcome the obstacle. Okay, now let's go to brain games and pick one.
Left.
What we perceive and what is to be reality are 2 very different things. Today, you see me standing here at the age of 26. I'm the CEO and designer of my namesake clothing line, Mary Young. I also power a movement called the Self-Love Club, where I encourage open and authentic conversation around body positivity, self-love, and self-care. Outside of work, I'm very passionate about the creative community. I encourage women to embrace themselves and to challenge themselves. I also focus on my health and my fitness activities and really push myself to the limits. This is what you see. But 10 years ago, if you were to tell me this was my future, I wouldn't have believed you. 10 years ago, this didn't look like my life. This didn't seem something I could have. When we look at our lives, a lot of moments will happen that will change everything. For me, that day was November 3rd, 2007. I was playing rugby in gym class. I grew up with an older brother, so I knew how to play and jump in there, and so I did. I got right in, and I ended up taking a few heavy hits to the head, and I got a concussion. It was a grade 1 concussion, so for those of you who know, that's not the worst concussion you can get. On a scale of concussions, it was at the bottom. I didn't lose consciousness, I knew who I was, and I knew where I was. These were all good signs. In fact, 1 in 5 students will actually get a concussion in the regular season. And 90% of those concussions, you won't lose your consciousness and you won't black out. So I wasn't rare by any means. But what happened next was rare. So I followed my doctor's orders. I didn't do anything extensive for the next 3 weeks. No gym class, no extracurricular activities, and I didn't use my brain that intensely. No heavy thinking. Realistically, I just took it easy. It was all pretty good. The headache started to subside, the nausea, the dizziness started to fade away, and I started to come back to myself a little bit and feel more normal. Then, 4 weeks after the concussion, I woke up to something I had never experienced before. This was a feeling that I never knew. I woke up with a migraine. I had headaches before, I knew what a headache was, and I knew what that felt like, but a migraine was different. This migraine lasted 8 months. This was 8 months every single day with this pain. A few days into the migraine, all of my symptoms came back with a vengeance. The dizziness became severe vertigo that even when I was sitting down, I couldn't tell what was up or down. Everything was spinning. My visual sight was actually affected. I would see strobe lights going off my peripherals everywhere. The ground was constantly shaking. Moving through the day became such a challenge that I couldn't figure out where I was going, what I was doing, and how to even move through my life. Next, my cognitive skills were affected. I was unable to read and write the way that I used to. So imagine this, at age 16, in grade 11, unable to read and write. A simple question like, what is the date, was really hard for me to understand. Simple, just a few words, something we are asked every single day. For me, I would have to break it down word by word. What is the date? If I was able to even understand what the sentence was, it could take me up to 2 or 3 minutes to understand it. Answering the question was even harder. You would see words that would blend together. A word that I didn't mean to be there would suddenly show up, and none of it made sense. And I couldn't understand why this was happening. I didn't know what was going on. This affected me every single day. On top of that, I was struggling with speaking. You know that feeling when you have a word on the tip of your tongue and you can feel it, you know it, and you just can't say it? That was me every single day, to the point where I was unable to have proper conversations. This was the new normal for me. As this progressed, I started to see different doctors, and I was finally diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome. And believe it or not, a lot of people actually have post-concussion syndrome, with around 50% of patients having these symptoms up to 3 months after the concussion, and another 10 to 15% having those last for over 1 year. I was the 10 to 15%. My symptoms lasted nearly 7 years. This wasn't something I was prepared for. This wasn't something that I knew was going to happen. As I was moving through this, the first year was the hardest. I was prescribed a lot of different medication to deal with this pain, the dizziness, the nausea, everything that I was feeling. I had to have different medications to control. This first year was a blur for me. I don't remember most of it. I don't remember who I was in that year, actually. When I speak to my mom about it, she'll often recall seeing her daughter, my body, my personality, and everything, but something was missing. I was emotionless, my personality was muted, and I was distant. There is one memory I have of that year, when I was 16, standing in front of my mirror at home, looking at myself and feeling so lost. What I saw wasn't who I was. My physical appearance had changed. I had gained weight from the medication, so what I saw wasn't who I knew. And then my personality wasn't there. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. So when I looked at myself, I felt 2 separate things. My mind and my body were separate. They didn't work together. My mind felt extremely betrayed by my body. Why was I in this pain? I didn't want this. I didn't want this confusion, this dizziness, this nausea. I didn't want to be 16 and not know who I was, and to be just moving through the world without any sense of care or any sense of direction. I felt betrayed by myself. This was the biggest challenge for me to move past that. Over the next 2 years, I was able to lower down my medication, and I was able to get down to 1 or 2 different medications a day. At this time, my migraines were about 20 to 25 days of a month. Now that sounds pretty horrendous. Imagine 20 days with a migraine. For me, this was my new normal. And for me, that was progress. So when I was 18, I decided to move to Toronto, 5 hours away from my hometown. Really exciting time, going to school, getting my post-secondary education. I had a few friends in the city, but I had no family. The biggest struggle was actually to find a new doctor. I was willing to find any doctor that was willing to try anything. I wanted to try anything to get rid of this pain, to solve what was going on. So I visited numerous different doctors, tried many different techniques. And at the age of 22, I was still categorized as living in chronic pain, with migraines anywhere from 15 to 25 days of a month. This was while I was in university, working a part-time job, and I had an internship. So my doctor had an idea. He explained to me about these neurons that we all have called nociceptor neurons. What they do is they actually detect signals of damage or potential damage, and then they let your action potential know, and it'll actually signal to your brain that you're in pain. So if you're playing soccer and you scrape your knee, your action potential will allow your brain to know that you scraped your knee. So therefore, you know your knee is bleeding or it's hurt. Sometimes when you're playing soccer, your adrenaline will carry you through and you won't actually feel that. So you'll be playing and all of a sudden at the end of the game, you realize, wow, my knee really hurts. That's because the adrenaline actually washed away those potential actions. So for me, my doctor said that my body may have been actually sending these messages of pain when there was no damage. So there were such strong pain waves in my body that they might have been firing even when nothing was happening and no damage was being done. So what his approach was to stop all those pain waves. And how he did this was he took general anesthetic, a small amount of freezing, it's a small needle, and he inserted it on every vertebrae down my neck and into my shoulders in order to freeze any pain. I did this 3 times. The first time I did it, I was so confused after I had it done that I had to take a cab home. I was stuck in my bed for 2 days. I could barely move. I didn't understand what was happening to my body. The second time, I knew a little bit more. I knew what to expect. And by the third time, I knew what was happening, but there was no progress. Nothing changed. The pain was still there. I was just as dizzy. I didn't understand why it wasn't working. So this is when I went back to my doctor and we sat down and he said he had a solution. He told me to quit, that I should quit school, that I should quit my part-time job, I should quit my internship, and I should focus solely on my recovery. And that should be all of my attention, is getting better. So for me, when I heard that, that was terrifying. I was 23 in my 3rd year of university. I'd already worked so hard to move to Toronto, to pursue my education, to have a life, to build my future, to have someone to tell me to quit and stop everything. It was gut-wrenching. So I found myself at a fork in the road. To the right, I could do what my doctor said. I could quit. I could move home to my small town with my mom and focus on my health and focus on my recovery. But I knew in my gut that if I were to do that, I wouldn't have the strength to move back to Toronto, that I already put so much on the line to come here and pursue my education that I wouldn't be able to do that for a second time. So the other path was to change my mindset and to flip it. These were my 2 paths that I had. At 23, I had to decide. I chose to change my mindset. When it comes to changing your mindset, I'm sure most of you have heard different lists, 5 steps to be more positive, the way to look at the world through brighter eyes. This isn't something that happens overnight, I can admit that, but it is something that is very powerful. When I was growing up, my parents always taught us to be thankful and grateful for the things we had. We would always note the house, our family, our friends, whatever it was, and be very thankful for that. And so I decided to take that one step further, and I started a thankful journal. For me, I would write down anything I was thankful for, whether that was the smallest thing of watching TV and enjoying it, or laughing with my friends. It didn't always have to be related to my physical health, but I always wrote down what I was thankful for. That changed my outlook. I stopped looking at the negative things, the things I didn't have, the things that I was losing out on, but rather the things I did have. Next, I decided to use some positive self-talk. I noticed the way that we speak to our friends. We're always encouraging them, we're building them up, we're supporting them. But then when we speak to ourselves, oftentimes we're tearing ourselves down. We're not supporting ourselves, we're not saying anything positive to ourselves. So I changed that. I would stand in front of the mirror and speak to myself in 3rd person to encourage myself. Now this is very strange, trust me if you ever try this. Looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, Mary, your pain doesn't define you. Mary, your body offers you more than pain. It felt very strange, but it worked. I started to listen and believe what I was saying, and my body also started to listen. Lastly, I looked at what my body and my mind could do. These are our 2 most powerful tools that all of us possess, and I decided to use those. For the past 7 years, I was told not to work out, not to increase my heart rate, and to not jump, bounce, or move around to the point that I would actually get a migraine. So what I decided to do was go to the gym. I started working out. I started with the smallest amounts of workouts, and trust me, I was exhausted. And eventually, I started to go back, and I started to feel stronger. And my body started to feel more powerful because I was using it and because I recognized it. As I was doing these 3 things, my migraine started to soften. They went from 25 to 20 days a month down to 15. By the age of 24, I was no longer living in chronic pain. This was the first time in my life that I had less than 10 migraines a month, to the point where now I have less than 1 migraine a month. It's usually every 2nd month. So these 3 things really shifted my future. These mindset changes were controlling what I was able to change in my life in order to move past that fork in the road. I'm sure most of you have faced a fork in the road, or maybe all the odds have been stacked against you, and you felt at a loss. What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you turn to? But the thing to remember is you actually turn to yourself. You look at your mindset, what you're able to do, and you remember these 3 things to help you move past whatever is blocking your path. So take a look at your life. Look at what you're grateful for. Be thankful for it. We're all in here today. This is an amazing experience. We all are pursuing our education, something that not everyone our age gets to do in this world. Be very grateful for those things. Start speaking to yourself the way you would speak to your friends. Encourage yourself. Speak to yourself in third person if that helps, but always have positive self-talk and affirmation. And lastly, know that your body and your mind are your most powerful tools that you have. Use those tools. Remember that they are yours to use for your entire life, and they are more powerful than you can ever imagine. At the end of the day, when you're stuck and you're trying to go uphill and you're trying to push through and you're looking to what's next, remember that your mindset can truly change your future. Thank you.
All right. So that was that one. Do you have any comments on that one?
I thought it was interesting, and like I could relate to that thing where she said about writing down like what you're thankful for and stuff. It's a good reminder. Like I did that not too long ago, where I just, because there's two things that happened, and it really like it poked my brain. One is I saw a video of this. She was like a young girl in her 20s, and she was paralyzed from the waist down, and she was like going into detail about her life, and like how she has to deal with it, and like how sleeping works for someone who's paralyzed, like how it feels like it's dead weight, and how blood clots happen in your legs if you stay in the same position for a while, and like the bathroom situation and all that stuff. And it was a really good reminder, especially because she just looked like a regular, healthy 20-year-old girl. So that was one thing. And then the other is like a dream that I had. And it is just, I accidentally drove off a bridge, and like I was slowly drowning. Like, and all I could think about is all the stuff that like I could have done in like the time that I had before. And like putting those two things in my mind and like remembering them every day, it I think it's been helping me.
That's good. So being mindful more and more because of certain instances and certain events that happened, or certain, I guess in this case, a dream also, and then the video that you saw.
Yeah. It's interesting though that it actually helped with her condition too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this is a review of, yeah, so this is a review. So let's.
If I don't want to make a video like this.
Michael Jordan has said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots, lost almost 300 games, and 26 times I've been trusted to make the game-winning shot and missed. I fail over and over and over again, and that is why I succeed." Michael Jordan is one of the most famous basketball players in the world, though he was not always a star. He didn't make his high school basketball team because he was too short and wasn't good enough. He could have quit, but instead he had the mindset to continue and get better. He was practicing each day before most people were even out of bed. And because of this, he not only made the team the following year, but he went on to become the greatest player of all time and a true champion. The question that comes to our mind is, can we all learn to have a mindset of a champion? A mindset is a word describing how we think. There are two types of mindsets. One, a growth mindset, and two, a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is when somebody believes they can learn to be good and they can learn to get better. They are not afraid of challenges. They continue when things get hard. They know that they have put effort in to learn, and they learn from criticism. They are also inspired by people who do well. Michael Jordan has this trait, though another person with a growth mindset is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He was cut from the Canadian Football League early on in his career. He could have quit, but instead he worked very hard, faced many challenges, and is now a super famous movie star, one of my favorite. Did you know that coaches and professional scouts look for athletes who don't just have skill? They want someone who wants to learn, who is coachable, and will give 100% effort in their practices. They want someone with a growth mindset. What they don't want is somebody who thinks they are already good enough, they don't need to learn, and are not coachable. These people have a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is the opposite of a growth. These people either think they're born good or born not so good. They cannot learn. They are afraid of challenges. They give up and get defensive easily. They feel criticized when given feedback and are threatened by people who do well. Which mindset do you think I have? Well, let me tell you a story. Reading has always been hard for me, and even now I still find it challenging. From kindergarten to 4th grade, I was always a bit below grade level in reading. So each night, I read aloud to my parents to try to get better. This was always the worst part of my day. Whenever I was reading, I would of course make mistakes, misread words, say words that weren't there, miss words that were there, and miss punctuation. Normal. But whenever my mom or dad tried to correct me, I'd get upset. I told them that they were wrong and sometimes even have a meltdown. This happened from my friends and teachers and with other subjects and activities too. I thought that I should know how to do everything already, and if I didn't, I would get upset. I thought that what my teachers were teaching should come to me easy. Well, guess what? Some of the things I was learning or reading were not easy. I would get upset. Negative thoughts came into my mind. You suck. You can't do anything. This should be so easy. Suddenly, I felt tears coming down my face in front of my friends and teachers too. In my head, I was saying, no, please, no. I could no longer control my emotions. This is where the real problem begins. You see, I lose control of my emotions, I stop listening, and I stop thinking. I become difficult to those around me. And when I finally get through it, I am very tired. This is not healthy, and it's not the person I want to be. I want to know why I was feeling this way and why my emotions were so strong. Well, this year, in 5th grade, was the first year I was able to answer these questions. I learned what a growth and fixed mindset are. I'm learning how to change my fixed mindset into a growth mindset and have a mindset of a champion. I believe we can have both of these mindsets, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. I believe this because I have both. I have a growth mindset with things like soccer, basketball, change, and learning new languages. I also believe we can change our fixed mindset into a growth mindset and have a mindset of a champion. Well, maybe not a champion like Michael Jordan, but a champion in our own way. We may just need a little help to do this. My dad and I read this book called Mindsets, written by Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck is a professor and professional psychologist who researched and came up with the idea of a growth and fixed mindset. Her book told me that I was not the only one as a fixed mindset from time to time. However, the best advice I ever got was from my teacher and school counselor. Their advice was a one little 3-letter word. This word was yet. They told me always put the word yet at the end of my sentence. I can't do it. I can't do it yet. I don't understand. I don't understand yet. The word yet makes me feel I just need to put a little more effort in before I understand it. I still struggle with a fixed mindset from time to time. However, I now know why I get frustrated and upset. For any of you out there who may have a fixed mindset from time to time, please know that I am proof that you can beat it. Writing this talk, I struggled the whole time. Though every day I've gotten a little better than the day before. This is why I can say I'm winning, because I'm here in front of you now today. Thank you.
All right. Thoughts on that one? Or this one right here?
Wait, do you want to answer the question or thoughts on the video?
Either one.
Well, the video, it was a good speech. It was just like a reiteration of, like everything else we've been going over about not staying stuck in the same mindset.
Okay, what about this one?
For the second question, how do we regain control or prevent ourselves from being overwhelmed? I think like setting hard expectations and like which don't need to happen, like that could prevent you from becoming overwhelmed. Like if you say you absolutely have to do this thing, obviously we have due dates for stuff, but like a lot of things we put expectations on ourselves and hard deadlines that we don't have like legitimate reason to do that. So I think sometimes that could cause you to feel overwhelmed or burnt out, like if you don't reach that stuff. And I guess you regain control by just putting more thought into it, I guess, and being mindful of this isn't going to be the end of the world if you don't accomplish this.
Yeah, and like if you prioritize what you need to focus on, then you can go from there. Yeah. And if you if you feel like something is overstressing you and you're not going to be able to do it, then being gentle and kind to yourself helps you kind of navigate that situation. Either you might not do that thing or you might do it, but kind of in steps, stages, or whatever, kind of accounting for your own condition as well. But also knowing that if you're not able to do something yet, that you can put your mind to it and then you can continue working until you get to a point where you can. Assuming that it's not something that's haram or whatever and stuff. But other than that, if you put your mind to something overall, yeah.
And I think like one thing I noticed is that you just have to be persistent if you want to accept it, because like a lot of times I'll try to like, if all right, something happens and I don't like it and I try to reframe and like adjust my mindset, and initially I might think to myself, all right, this is nonsense, like look what's in front of you, this is a bad situation, but still though, like I find even though like that's my initial reaction, it's not as much anymore, because I'll persistently still bring up like the reframing process in my head.
Okay, makes sense. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. It's very important to have the right mindset. The mindset, apparently in studies is showing to also have an impact physiologically. It can help you in terms of recovery. It can help you in terms of so many different ways. The other video that we saw another day, it was that it was talking about how when the person had an expectation, when they were told that this whatever Sunday that they were having is like really heavy in calories and stuff, then that really impacted them in terms of it lowered their hunger hormones, but at the same time it made them sort of feel like their body reacted by having it, so that it increased the metabolism and things like that, right? So just the mindset, just thinking like about something, just whatever information you let in and you accept or you don't accept, right, can have an impact on how your body functions as well. So it's something where your mindset can actually have an impact on how your body processes food, for example. How it manages stress, for example, or even if it has stress, if it looks at something in a way that it ends up perceiving stress or it doesn't perceive stress and all that. They also mentioned in that other video before about how when it came to it, the what do you call it, the people who thought that sorry, I just what was I? Sorry, I just had it slipped my mind just now. I was gonna say about it was the same video about the Sunday thing, but then it was another portion that I was gonna hint that I was gonna mention. It was about how looking at something in a certain way had an impact. One of the things that they did mention was the thing about like the workers at the hotel, and when they were cleaning and so on, when they didn't feel a certain way, but then when they felt a certain way, the difference between the two, right? When they were told that their work is actually exercise and like how it impacted their body and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that mindsets can have an impact on. So mindset is very important. Having the right mindset impacts stress, impacts your body functioning, your hormone functioning, your like food digestion, metabolism, and everything. So it's very powerful. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Sounds good. So we will go ahead and close here, inshallah. And let me stop this. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.